whenever you adopt the good sustainable design practice, actually you save commercially safe. You save a lot of money in running the buildings and all that. And even the whole industry start to follow the materials, the technology of producing building materials has improved. I think all those, the whole industry has evolved into more responsible, I would say. For me, this is about advocacy, and the sustainable design is not an option with the current state of the environment. It is our responsibility.
What we did as an initial exercise was, the client always comes with an Excel sheet, a brief, and says that I want to build this, I want so many places, workstations, I want so many cabins, meeting rooms. But when you scratch the surface and you start analyzing each of the requirements, you will find that they have already built in some amount of fat in their requirements. And so we started dissecting that. And lo and behold, we found that by repurposing this existing structure, we can take care of their existing population and some amount of floating population as well. I built so much. There were many instances, and this has all not happened over time. This maturity has happened over time. Till about 2008, we were also relishing the fact that a client has come to us asking us to build 1 million square feet. We would go blind and build 1.5 million square feet, because your fees depend on that, right? You build more, you get more fees.
Hello everyone, my name is Pooja Tiwari and I'm delighted to welcome all of you to episode 5 of VC Live Season 3. For those of you joining us for the first time, VC Live is brought to you by the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club, GVCC, the initiative by Godrej Locks and Architectural Solutions. Before we begin, let me share a little about GVCC. The Godrej Value Co-Creators Club was established 3 years ago with the aim of building a community that supports and nurtures architects and interior designers. Today, GVCC is a thriving network of over 2,000 practitioners and continues to grow stronger every single day. If you haven't already signed up, you can do so now using the link in the chat box. One of our key initiatives is VC Live, a platform where global experts share insights into architecture and design. Let's take a quick look at what GVCC is all about.
Welcome to the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club, where innovation meets collaboration. GVCC is a unique platform for architects and interior designers to merge their creative visions with our innovative product offerings. We aim to cultivate a network of thought leaders, driving innovation and excellence in the industry. Celebrate your achievements with our GV's awards, recognizing innovative projects across various verticals. Join our community through exhibition visits and masterclasses to stay updated on the latest trends and technologies. Enjoy exclusive access to new products, special discounts, and tours of our Mumbai and Goa plants. Join the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club today. Be part of a community that values innovation, collaboration, and sustainability.
VC Live is a monthly series featuring thought leaders in architecture and design, sharing their insights and experiences. Over the past seasons, we've explored themes like conscious design and smart living. This season, we are diving into Future Forward, a theme that explores innovative, visionary, and sustainable ideas shaping the future of architecture and design. Our goal is to challenge the status quo and inspire new perspectives on how we design our spaces. The theme Future Forward encourages us to think beyond the present, addressing issues such as sustainability, technology, and functionality. Today's episode continues this journey with the topic Reimagining Spaces for Tomorrow. And we are thrilled to have two distinguished speakers with us who are pioneers in sustainable and innovative design. Let's dive into the topic, and that is Reimagining Spaces for Tomorrow, where we will explore how architecture can restore, renew, and inspire our built environment. Our first speaker is architect Azril Amir Jaafar, Director of VERITAS Design Group, Malaysia. He is a pioneer in sustainable design, bringing over 25 years of experience and having led numerous award-winning projects. From corporate headquarters to urban master plans, his work emphasizes regenerative architecture that goes beyond sustainability to actively improve our world. He has been recognized globally for his contributions, including receiving prestigious awards such as the PAM Gold Awards and FIA BCI BRICS D Excellence. He's also an active advocate for sustainable practices at international platforms like the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Let's warmly welcome architect Azril. We are truly excited to hear your thoughts on how architecture can reshape our future. A warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Such a generous introduction for me. Right, I'm glad to be able to be given this opportunity to share my thoughts on my works, especially on the sustainable design with this Indian audience. I believe it is not only in India, it is live globally. Okay, let me share my presentation now. As Pooja mentioned, the theme for tonight is reimagining spaces for tomorrow. Right, when we talk about spaces for tomorrow or spaces of tomorrow, we'll be talking about the role of technology, similar to what Godrich is doing. We can't avoid having interfacing of technology in architecture. At the same time, we'll be talking about we can avoid looking into the flexibility and the adaptability in the spaces that we experience and spaces that we design. And of course, the issues of environment and sustainable design is a big topic that will influence our built environment in the future. Right, before I move forward, just a little quote that will remind us of our existence presently. It is about, we just inherit the earth from our ancestors, and we borrow it from our children. It is not for us to destroy it, not for us to exhaust the resources that we have. Right, looking into the challenges that the world is having now, there are so many climate related challenges: extreme weather, mega disaster, drought, and flooding. And recently in LA, there was a big fire that caused a lot of catastrophe and economic loss to the world, as well as, and in some part of the world, a lot of lives has been affected by all this natural disaster. And all this extreme weather actually is caused by global warming, and the global warming is caused by increase in greenhouse gases. And what caused the increase of greenhouse gases? First of all, of course, the way we source our energy nowadays from the fossil fuels, the release of large amounts of carbon dioxide and other harmful gases to the atmosphere definitely cause the increase in greenhouse gases. And of course, the rate of deforestation, because trees, as we all know, absorb CO2, and cutting of trees cause the carbon stored in those trees released back into the atmosphere, thus increasing the temperature of the surroundings. And at the same time, we need to look at the land use changes, urbanization, even though we can't avoid it, but actually it affects the carbon storage in the world. And once the places being developed, there are more emissions that will happen to that particular area. And of course, with the increase of development, and that will cause a certain level of wastage that will affect us, that will cause the waste management issues surrounding us. So landfills, if it is not handled properly, will generate a lot of methane, and wastewater treatment also will need to be, will stress out the wastewater, and then the water, overall water sources to the world is also affected. And we architect actually is one of the reason for global warming. 40% carbon emission in the building industry, or 40% of the carbon emission in the world actually is caused by the building industry. And it is from the new construction as well as the building operations. And when you look at other part for that that is, affected by our doing as well, the transportations, because we are the one somehow not indirectly cause the urban design that, that affect the transportation. The transportation costs another 22%. Right. Okay. The issue with the climate, the issue with sustainability, and the threat to our planet is the belief that that someone else will save it. And the side photo here, you see how the power of trees that cause a lot of cooling in the urban environment. Right. Well, what sort of strategies that we as architects can adopt? This is some of the ideas I would like to share that are being used in our practice. But mainly most of the ideas is in tropical countries. So as you know, we are practicing in Malaysia mainly, and most of our projects is in Malaysia. And the issue with tropical countries like Malaysia is how to cool the building. And the air conditioning takes about 56% of the energy usage in the building operation. So in designing the building, we have to adopt strategies like, first of all, we have to create the energy efficient design through various measures as listed here. And at the same time, building must be able to generate its own energy through various measures of renewable energy. And the material that we use for construction must be looked into from the aspect of embodied carbon, the recyclability of the material, and so forth. And of course, you can't design building in isolation. You have to integrate it and optimize, try to capitalize on the surrounding, the landscape, how you integrate with the landscape. And last but not least, in the water management, it is one of the resources that affect the building operation. Right. Let's go into the examples of our project. The first one is how the example that focus on how we reduce the heat island effect in the city caused by the building design. The project is in Shah Alam, one of the cities in Malaysia. We call it, well, it is a headquarters of one of the property developer in Malaysia. And we call it Laman PKNS. Laman in Malay is a compound, is part of the surrounding of the buildings. And the building is seen as an extension of the park because it is located next to a public park. All right, this is a bit of a context of the building. So as I mentioned just now, it is in the city, but the city is the city has large public park, and it is at the periphery of the central business district and the park. So how buildings can facilitate? The big challenge in this is how the building can facilitate the integration. So these are the concept that we adopt. The facilitation of connection from the city to the park, and connecting, facilitating the connection among the people, the users of the building, and more importantly is connecting with the nature. Right, first of all, as I mentioned in the strategies earlier, it is about the passive design strategy. We look at the orientation, and in the tropical, in the equator, the location that this building is located, and we have the north and south facade. The long facade of building must avoid the east and west. So in this orientation, the north and the long facade is facing north and south. And then there's the planning. You know, how do you how do you reduce the air conditioning space? The concept that we are using is we just account the working space, the offices, whereas the circulation spaces we left it as naturally ventilated, right? So this is the example of that. And then vertically, the section of the building, how you use we arrange the spaces inside the building to insulate the building itself. Right, the building is kind of large block. So, but in order to increase the performance, energy performance of the building, or the passive cooling of the building, we break the buildings into 4 blocks that allows the air to flow in between the blocks, sort of the wind tunnel effect that passively cool the building. And this is how the buildings look from the street. And the spaces in between the blocks creates a nice shaded external environment that can be used as for the many usage. This is the idea of flexibility, the adaptability of spaces that will be demanded more in the future. Again, this is the western facade, where we use large overhang to shade the building, at the same time become the feature of the building also. Right, and the big idea of the building is reducing the heat island effect, and we use the landscape, the roof garden, as the main feature that insulate the building from the roof. And of course, we need to look at the high performance facade, high performance envelope to minimize the transmission of the heat from the surroundings. And lighting strategy, as well as natural ventilation features in various spaces, and another important element in the building is renewable energy features. So here, because this building was designed in 2009, and photovoltaic is fairly expensive, and technology is not of photovoltaic solar panel was not as good as nowadays. And we adopt the renewable measure using the heat tube. In simple term, we harvest the heat and to run the air conditioning system. This is the one form of renewable energy that we adopt in this building. And talking about water, there are various water saving measures being adopted. Rainwater harvesting, of course, and there are some more features that we adopted along the way. And the overall consumption of the water from the public main is being reduced by 60%. And in overall, the building offset about 5,000 tons of CO2. And these are the verticals that normally we use in order to measure the building consumption, or the measure to check on the elements that will cause or will reduce the energy consumption in our design. Right, next slide. Okay, the next project that I will show is centered around the the recycle of building. For us, this is another my favorite quote. The most sustainable building is the one that already exists. Try to save the building as much as possible without destroying it, because once you destroy the building, more CO2 will be released to the environment. And then another aspect is the urban design or the historical, the contextual aspect of the city. So when you recycle, we preserve the history, the memory, and the identity of a place, and at the same time, of course, minimize the carbon emission. Right, it is a floating restaurant, just a very small building, again in Shah Alam also. The problem with the building is it is suffering from the lack of maintenance. The building is dilapidated, it is left to be rot, and because of that, the building was in danger of being demolished. And what we did is we managed to convince the authority or the owner of the building to maintain the building or at the same location and recycle whenever we can the material being used in the construction of the building. So first of all, the foundation of the building is being maintained, and whatever materials that we can salvage is being kept and saved, and we remodel the form, reuse it in different usage or configuration or permutation. So, for example, the roof tiles being converted to the facade of the building, and some of the nice articulation of the craftsmanship being recycled and reused, so that a certain element of culture is being preserved in the building itself. And we reinterpret the identity, the cultural identity. If you look at the previous building, the form was, some form of the vernacular Malay architecture. And then in the new building, we look at another reference of the traditional or the local identity itself in the modern form. It is about the reinterpretation. It is about the redefining the identity of the location that responds to the climate. Right. Hang on, let me try. Okay. Right. The next project is about the urban design, slightly about the urban design. The trend in the future that we can't avoid is about moving towards the sustainable mobility. And this diagram is somewhere that I got from the Middle East conference, that where the objective or the direction of the mobility in the GCC countries is more moving towards the walking and cycling, moving towards using public transportation, moving towards using the shared mobility, and as well as reducing the private car usage. These are the main direction of the urban design in the future as far as the sustainable urban mobility is concerned. Right. The project that I'm going to show next is about facilitating the movement of the people between the two different districts in Kuala Lumpur. If you are familiar with Kuala Lumpur, there are one district that has very distinct, the Scales Kuala Lumpur City Center, and across the river, there's another really undeveloped part of the city. And actually, there are a lot of history, but I won't dwell on the historical part in this presentation. But basically, this for today's topic is about facilitating urban mobility, about encouraging people to walk in the hot tropical climate, and at the same time providing equal opportunity for development as well as the historical part of the project. Right. A bit of the issues here where the highways disconnect the two parts of the cities. And because of the highway that being constructed to dissect this part of the city, and the walking is impossible. The bridge that used to be there is being, no longer there. And in order for you to go to the other side of the city, let's say if you were to walk, it will take you about 40 minutes in the hot tropical climate. So people, that will definitely, people won't walk in that kind of situation. But with the bridge, the total distance or the time for travel, for walking is being reduced to 15 minutes. Right. This is the component of the project. But most important thing is the top picture here, where you can see the before and after. The before is more car-centric kind of the urban fabric, and the bottom one is where it is more pedestrian friendly after the project being completed. Right, and there's some when we develop the design, we look at the because it has to be attraction in the city. So we look at the elements of culture, we look at the element of environment, and at the same time we look at the element of celebration. These are the form that associated with the with the local tradition that which is beautiful in the original form, and being translated, interpreted into a building form. So this is a bit of the details of the facade, the forms, and how things are put together in the project. And then because of various interfacing, the material, the form, the play of lights, and from day and nights and all, it become a special experience for people to come. And because of that kind of attraction, people is encouraged to walk. And this is one way of encouraging urban mobility, sustainable urban mobility in the city of Kuala Lumpur. You can see the after effect of the bridge. It becomes the medium. Of course, at night, there are about, I think, 2,000 LED bulbs on the facade, and it becomes a medium of celebration, medium of transmitting information, the medium that make the city vibrant. So, people come, do the advertisement, enjoy the weekend, the after hours and all that. And the side effect of that, it becomes the element of regeneration of the city, become urban catalyst. And if you look at the bottom picture below the city, the economic development suddenly happen. The economic activity become flourish in this part of the city. So this is the beginning of the bigger transformation. Right. The next project, I think I'll go to the final project that I'll share today. This is a project for the Petronas, the oil company of Malaysia. Oil company and environment doesn't really gel. So I mean, this is another, another effort for us to integrate these two elements together. The project is on the 35-acre site, and as you can see, this is a sprawling building. So our adoption of the project is slightly different, and the project is looking at the future learning. So the element of flexibility, innovative technology is being married and being integrated in the overall design, but at the same time. And then the method of interaction, the method of learning is through dialogue, interaction, collaboration. This is the challenge, how architects can foster all this effect through spaces design. And the most important part is how we incorporate the environmental design into the project. So we set the objective of having the zero energy consumption in the project, zero waste, as well as the minimal potable water. These are the objective that we set at the very beginning of the project. All right. As I mentioned, the site is on the 35 acres, and it was being touched before, and it was that is being developed as a sports complex, abandoned, not used because of safety, because of lack of maintenance again. So what we did here, first of all, the concept of, the knowledge being flexible, so that creates the form of the building. And there's some, some advantage environmentally as well. And because of the sprawling site, we look at the vernacular architecture, the vernacular urban design, the village design actually. So how we use the surrounding to create a conducive microclimate that lower the temperature around the building. Because of that, once the temperature is lowered, so the effort to cool the building is less. So this is the approach for this project. And again, the same concept of orientation and, the various, the way how you locate the material, the spaces inside the building, as well as integration of naturally ventilated spaces in the large complex being adopted here. And the elements of flexibility, because flexibility is one of the feature of the future spaces. So, the spaces, the classroom, the teaching spaces is being designed so that it can be adapted or into various form, from, the 10 packs module to the 30 packs module to 20 packs module to 60 and even 120. So through various, configuration using the architectural element. Right. One of the feature of the building is the multi-purpose hall, which is, first of all, it is round, and at the same time, it is being integrated with technology. The idea of being, the spaces to be to give experience of being at other location. So this location, this space or this room is being fixed with the LED panels surrounding it, so that the whole experience will be really immersive inside the space. And at the same time, one of the feature here, because the LED panel that's surrounding this space on the wall is kind of is made of, rotation or rotatable panels. So at the end of every event, each of the panels can be rotated so that you are being transported back or being reminded back at your context, the current location of the building. Right. Okay, again, how we adopt the various elements on the facade to create the high performance of the facade as far as the heat transmission is concerned. Our method is simple. On the east and west facade, you adopt the horizontal elements, but of course you have to modulate it to make it more interesting. And the north and south facade will adopt the vertical elements, as well as certain facades where you need to have certain experience inside the interior of the space. So we adopt higher elements that cause the diffuse light in the space. So these are some of the numbers that we achieve, and the elements of being in the being in the environment or surrounded by environment. The notion of blurring the boundaries between internal and external. These are, and then because of that, the space become more flexible and become more evergreen and can be used, and can be left for the users to experience and to become creative in how you use the spaces. And by integrating the design with the surrounding, you encourage biodiversity. There are a lot of animals around the buildings that suddenly appear and become part of the environment. If you remember the site previously it was just a sports field. Now the site become enriched with a lot of biodiversity. The objective of try to imitate the nature, and then by imitating nature, the whole cycle of the natural environment being created, thus the environment, the carbon release or the global warming effect of the building being reduced or the surrounding being reduced. Right. So various experience, and then the client or the user really adopt fully the notion of being in the sustainable design environment into their lifestyle or of the facilities. These are various initiatives that we integrated into the scheme. And because of that, the project managed to reduce the 65% or save electricity by 65% if you compare with other similar buildings, similar facilities in this area, and water consumption by 89%. I think, yeah, we are coming to the end of my presentation. For me, this is about advocacy, and the sustainable design is not an option with the current state of the environment. It is our responsibility. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Architect Azril, for sharing your invaluable insights and showing us how regenerative design can transform our environment. Thank you once again.
Right, thank you. So I'll stop sharing now.
Yes. Our second speaker is Architect Ravi Sarangan, Director of Edifice Consultants, India. With over 3 decades of experience, he has led iconic projects for industry giants like Google, RMZ, JSW, Capgemini, Reliance, ADAG, Godrej, and many others. His collaborative design approach and focus on sustainability have earned him numerous accolades and recognitions within the industry. From corporate architecture and hospitality to urban master planning, his work spans diverse typologies, always emphasizing sustainable future-ready solutions. He's also known for his ability to balance innovation with practicality, creating spaces that resonate with functionality and aesthetics. A warm welcome, Architect Ravi. We are very, very excited to hear your perspectives on today's topic, reimagining spaces for tomorrow.
Thanks, Pooja. Thanks, Pooja. Thank you, Azril, for that wonderful presentation. So, let me present my screen to you.
Sure.
Let me know if my screen is visible, please.
Yes, you can just do a full screen.
Yes, sure. So, a warm welcome to everyone. This is Edifice presenting to you some of our thoughts, ideologies. I think they're in sync with what Azril also mentioned. Just a quick introduction. I don't want to take too much of your time, but the introduction is necessary for just to showcase not about ourselves, but the impact that Edifice leaves behind on Mother Earth. Therefore, it's important for you to know the measures that we are taking to reduce this impact. So we have 7 offices. We've been in practice for 35 years. We have a significant presence in 7 verticals. Some of them are the larger verticals being developer, and then we do work on the corporate architecture space. And then, of course, into very large energy guzzling spaces like data centers, etc. So we have a presence across the country. We are headquartered in Mumbai, branches in 6 other cities, studios in Mumbai, Bangalore, and Kolkata. In the corporate architecture space, over the last maybe 8 or 9 years, we've been looking at ways and means of, as I mentioned before, how frugal can be in our build. And we'll be happy to note that we've delivered probably Delhi's, maybe India's second net positive building, which is the Atal Akshaya Urja Bhavan, which is about 300,000 square feet. We don't take power from the grid, we don't take water from the grid, and we in fact produce more than what is required. Now, how is this possible? I think we're going to be spelling out what are the measures we take across all our projects. I'm going to give you some case studies. But the rest of the projects on this page, which is the Mahindra vehicles or Tata consultancy services, or Monte Carlo, we've been taking measures to ensure that we consume as little as energy as possible, and very many of them are close to net zero. So I'm going to rush through some of the other verticals. I don't want to take too much of your time because I want to spend more time on what I'm going to showcase in terms of reimagining spaces. So we have, as I said, we leave behind a large impact on the square footage by the square footage that we build. I'm going to showcase one project to you, which is the ICICI Prudential Life Insurance corporate office at Prabhadevi, Mumbai. This was a close competition which we won, and I think there were about 6 odd architects who were invited. And this site is near Century Bazaar, Azril. This is South Mumbai, as maybe close to South Central Mumbai, very close to the waterfront, but you can't see the water from this space, and that gives you a radius. The red dot is my site, surrounded by some buildings on the side. The strengths of the site were it was a prominent road, one of the most prominent roads. So ICICI Prudential would get a great branding. And from the upper floors, you could get a potential sea view. The weakness was they were on the south, which in fact was a boon as well because it was protecting heat ingress. So there was a very tall building to the south. Opportunities were plenty. We wanted to give ICICI Prudential a great branding opportunity as well as possibility of incorporating energy efficient measures. Then finally, threats was traffic, pollution, air as well as noise. But luckily, most of my site was facing the north, and the view also was great on the north. Quick existing site conditions. There was a building existing there. Lots of trees on the periphery. That's the kind of vegetation. That's the kind of existing building. And then we came up with initial schemes. We did the usual study of the bylaws, did climatology studies, and then we hand drew a few sketches. We decided that what could leave behind a good impact, both aesthetically, functionally, as well as a brand opportunity for ICICI Prudential, which is into life insurance and which we wanted to, and they're one of the I think larger market share in the life insurance as well as in the non-life insurance space. So what we gave them is what Azril also mentioned: minimum columns so that you get flexibility, you future-proofing the building, and the site geometry as well as orientation because of the southern tall structure as well as the north front being north. We wanted to take in as much as natural light as possible. What we did differently was how could we mimic the trees which are on the ground plane to the vertical plane, and therefore we came up with several schemes. This being the one which was approved. This was kind of a great statement that we were making. A high-rise bang on Century Bazaar Road, which is Senapati Bapatmar. Immediately you saw that this was different. It had terraces, it had double height volumes, triple height volumes. And at ground level, this was creating some sort of a statement out there. And we were all very thrilled. There was a large parking requirement. So what you see on the top 4 floors beyond the double height ground is parking. So you had an opaque mass. So at human scale, you would probably encounter a bit of transparency at the ground level, some amount of opacity on the upper 4 levels, and then beyond that, because it was a tight site and we had quite a substantial amount of parking to be incorporated. So we were very proud of this, and the client loved it. Client said, let's go ahead with this. And then, some more images. It was great branding. You see from the top 4 floors, you could see the Bandra Worli ceiling, till, of course, some buildings came up in the near vicinity. But it was a different looking building, at the same time, very functionally sound. And these terraces gave them an opportunity to double height terraces, gave them an opportunity to showcase to the world about how their new building is going to look like. We were all very proud. We were going ahead. And then came Corona. And Corona taught us, put us stop to this. This was 2018, 2019. The client came back to us and said, look, I don't think we can go ahead with this. It's an insurance company. There were several claims. And therefore, we thought of how can, and very similar to you, Azril, Prior to this, we had then done at least about 6 buildings, prominent buildings in India, also the Vodafone headquarters, where we repurposed the structure. For us, adaptive reuse was not something which was novel. We always believed in less is more. And how could we breathe a new life into an old structure rather than erasing the past? Therefore, preserving history, slashing waste, and redefining sustainability. This way, we would not increase the carbon footprint. And we came back to the client and said that, look, how about revisiting the existing site conditions, look at the structures, and see what we could do to do justice to the environment. So again, we did a complete structural audit. We did a complete exercise of looking at the building seriously, which, uh, by the way, we ought to have done even in the beginning. But human beings make mistakes, and obviously, if you had built a new structure, we would have got more floor area. But when we dug deeper, did an analysis of what their requirement was. Of course, that the earlier building was taking care of more than what they desired, but it was taking care of future expansion. But we said that, look, let's look behind the client brief. Let's do an exercise once again and find out how much do you exactly want to build. I showed you examples of the earlier net zero buildings and net positive buildings. What we did as an initial exercise was the client always comes with an Excel sheet, a brief, and says that I want to build this, I want so many places, workstations, I want so many cabins, meeting rooms. But when you scratch the surface and you start analyzing each of the requirements, you will find that they have already built in some amount of fat in their requirements. And so we started dissecting that. And lo and behold, we found that by repurposing this existing structure, we can take care of their existing population and some amount of floating population as well. So we went back to studying the context. So there were 2 blocks on the northern side, what we call it the east and the west block. And there was a void in between. And this void, we thought that was a good connector. It was well shaded. And in crowded cities in Mumbai, you had this beautiful red dotted line as the space between the 2 buildings. And you had a nice large, maybe a 50-year-old or 100-year-old tree out here, and maybe more. And this was the main road. This was that site which was curved along this corner, and you saw that swanky tower that we had proposed. And then we said that we started looking at hand-drawn sketches, and we said that how could we plan the 2 buildings, introduce a new green lug took structural advice because this was a 40-year-old building. And then it had some amount of modern architectural elements there. And then we said, okay, here's what we should be doing. We should add maybe a structure to take care of the parking, because once you repurpose a building, you have to adhere to the new bylaws and norms, statutory laws. Luckily for us, there was an entrance in the front road as well as on the eastern road, and we said that we could use a parking tower. And you remember I told you on the southern side, there was a huge building so there were no great views on the south. So we put up a large parking tower which matched, and that's where architecture comes in, and you need to be conscious of where you're building and how your neighbors are going to perceive. It's not just your own property, your own project. You should look at the surroundings, the environs. And luckily for us, there was a parking structure in the rear which was 7 floors tall. So we said we will have our parking structure too, which is 7 floors tall. And then we said this heart that we've indicated could be an open atrium or a closed atrium between the 2 towers, which kind of makes the place humane, livable. And then we studied the 2 buildings. Obviously, these 2 buildings were built in different times. So that's another challenge that we had to face. So one building, which was newer, was 4.5 meters tall. The other building, which was older, was about 3.6 meters tall. Now we had to take care of that. So what we did was we created this atrium, built bridges which joined the 2 floors, and they acted as communal spaces, places for collaboration. We started doing some SketchUp models, and we drew a section along this line. And then what did we do? We said that let's do something on the roof. Now, when I do this closing the roof, I didn't want to close it fully. So instead of putting a flat roof, we thought that why don't we get in some amount of north light, which filters into the space. That means the people who are sitting within this floor plate on this side and this side also get in light from the top. And that's what we attempted to do. And so that was a north-light arrangement. And existing structural, since this was an old building, we had to do a lot of jacketing on the columns, we had to do a lot of waterproofing works, we had to do a lot of study on their existing basement. And then we came up with plans. So in the sense that we started doing the layouts, this rear block, which is shown as a utility block, later on had a tower car park over the utility block. We were blessed with a lawn on the rear side, which was a mandatory green area. This was the wonderful tree. And then this building, which was built more recently, we had an auditorium on the ground level. And this was an office block. And therefore, the atrium came in between, and we introduced a large reception area, and we took it right up to the 4 floors that the building is listed, a porte cochere where the security happened. We did some amount of, interventions in the form of introducing an elevator, some amount of core cuts, enhanced the size of the toilets. And then you had a blown up version of the ground level where we typically take all the visitor areas on the lowermost levels. So the cafeteria, which has external staff coming in, they used to serve food, prepared food, but we still need to give them some area for the kitchen for preparation of snacks. We had a gym. We had then this auditorium, which was a flexible space, very similar to what Azril was mentioning, that we gave them various options. It could be a training space, an auditorium space, and then we had a nice large reception, 3 meeting rooms, which served as a business center. So immediately you see this was the hall arrangement, and you could have many more people sit, and you could have a stage, because this was 4.5, I think more than about 4.5 meters. That was the office entry. And then you would take a left, take the staircase or the elevator to go up, or you could come to the cafeteria. And then the typical floors happen above it. So there was a desire from the client to have the 120-degree organic workstations. What it did was we took in some amount of eastern light. Luckily for us, the western light was blocked by the atrium. On this side, we played with the fenestration and gave it lesser fenestration so that we didn't have too much of ingress of western light. The south was blocked by the core and the meeting rooms. We did some surgery to the existing toilets. So a lot of effort went in. When you do adaptive reuse projects, it's not just you. It's got to be a joint effort with the architect, the structural engineer, the mechanical engineer, everybody coming in and contributing. Then there was a second floor. And then the second floor also was primarily open office. What you see, and as per in Vastu, you would typically place your head honcho cabins on the southern side of the building, and then some amount of cabins came on the north. So even the workstations got ample amount of natural light. Typically, on an open office floor plate, we would not give cabins the external side. By cabins, I mean the enclosed spaces. But in this, since the floor plate was small, we had an opportunity to give them external windows, as well as the open office got in sufficient amount of natural light. That was the second floor plan. And then we had the topmost level, which was where on block A is where we had the one more levels. If you remember, this was 4.5 meters. This was a taller structure. And then the third floor was where the executive sat. And on the executive level, we had the managing director, the chairman with an external terrace, a large boardroom, an executive dining room. They had a large terrace on this floor. So as is, I mean, with a lot of internal interventions, we kind of converted this into a great corporate headquarters. And that was the image that we got into place. That's your managing director's cabin, open office. When we chose the materials, we're firm believers that we try to source almost all the materials within a 500-kilometer radius. So we chose this stone from the lighter granite stone, which came in from Madurai. And the rest of the fenestration obviously went in for double glaze. And since this was a northern facade of the building, we went in for sufficient amount of glazing. The atrium was also glazed. As we got onto the western side, you will find that the window wall ratio going more, less windows, more wall. Then the internal spaces that we had, these were our initial sketch models. And I'm happy to state that the entire building is ready, occupied, and very close to what we had intended. as we entered in that, to accentuate that tree, if you remember, I showed you a tree. We introduced glass with some amount of foliage pattern on it. This was the atrium that we created. You could see from one wing to the other, a nice large reception. To the right was the auditorium that I spoke about. And on a clear day, you could see the tree as well behind. A typical workspace, a lot of biophilia elements, all natural trees here within the workspace. These were simulated images, and then what appears now is exactly the same as what you see. Also, what we do at Edifice is try to involve local artisans as well. At least on the focal walls, we had Indian marble in two shades, done in the herringbone pattern, because these we normally, all high traffic areas, we'd like to keep as permanent finish walls, and the rest of the areas were anyway glass and very minimal walls. We also identify all the artworks, which again come from local artists. So the entire office was carpeted and a 120-degree extent. These were the cabins which came along the periphery. This was the link between the two, because of that there was a central core in this building. So that was the link, and wherever there was a breakout area, we punctuated it with means of some, because there was a pantry counter here, we went in for some amount of hard flooring here in the pantry counter area, so that there's zero maintenance. And normally our interiors, we keep it very minimal, devoid of handles, play with very light tones. That's from one office bay, you're looking into this block B or block A to block B, and that's how through the atrium we could see the other wing. Immediately, what was two different offices was combined. Typical office bay was combined. Was typically we would have a cabin where they face the wall and work, and when they want to discuss, they would discuss on a meeting table. They had a monitor requirement. Some desired the monitor on the wall. Some had freestanding. But again, if you see, very minimal, very tastefully done. And then we came to the training hall in Block B, and that's where that multi-purpose space happened with collapsible partitions. So you had the same as an open hall, and then we came to the canteen, which was on the ground floor. And again, we played with a lot of Indian materials here, local stone, combination of tandoor, Jaisalmer, which came into play out here. Again, a lot of biophilia, a lot of greenery around. And as we go on to the uppermost floor, and this is probably where one of the only places where we've used a stone from Middle East. This was a beige from Muscat, and that's probably the only area where we kind of imported something from outside the country. Now, a requirement from ICICI Prudential was their main mother company, which was ICICI. Their boardroom had to be replicated in all the ICICI companies. So this is their old style boardroom, including the chairs and the table and the peripheral chairs. The only modern element that was infused was the technology, and therefore we, of course, even the artwork was something that we could play with. But the entire tone, and the look and feel had to be replicated across all their offices. This was the secretarial pool at the executive level. Now you will see a glimpse of the fabric, and typically wherever we use fabric, we involve the local weaving community. Many places we've used, for instance, if you're doing projects in Andhra Pradesh, we use the Malka fabric, or Kalamkari. The artwork also, we'll try to source it from Indian artists. And these are things that we've learned from our clients. It's not something that we've learned on our own. My advice to all the architects and interior designers is to engage. Design is a dialogue. You engage with your client. You have a dialogue, and you're giving shape to their ideas. You're not pushing design down their throat, right? So it is a result of extensively working with the client, coming up. So that's your managing director's cabin, where we had some fixed furniture, some meeting furniture, and he had this terrace outside. We had engaged a landscape consultant to kind of help us out. All double glazed partitions, very minimal. And this was the executive dining area. So it was continuation of the cafeteria. And again, if you see, this is Rajnagar marble in an hexagonal form. and even the tabletops are all Indian white marble, but the flooring again is from Muscat, which is a beige Muscat. A lot of emphasis. The story goes that you can gauge a company by the toilet that with the way they've designed and maintained their toilet. So we are firm believers in making our toilets, even if they are cramped, to go in for very very light shades, make them maintenance free, see that they are well ventilated and lit, much against everyone else's. Wherever we are designing our own buildings, we ensure that there is a large window available for the toilet as well. Because you invariably tend to mechanically ventilate, but just try introducing natural light windows to your toilets. It does a remarkable difference in hygiene. So we went in for, again, an Indian granite and a beige vitrified tiles for the dado. And here is where we then played a video. This was our concept presentation. So over to you. Just give me a second. So yeah, I'm through with my. So I'm through with my presentation. Thank you very much. For us, architecture is coming together of art, science, and diverse creative minds. And that's about it. So I'm through with my presentation. I've kept it short and sweet.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for such an insightful presentation. And a double thank you to both of you for those inspiring presentations. It's so incredible to see how both of you are redefining architecture and design with such innovative and thoughtful approaches. Before we move on to the quick discussion, I would remind the audience, if you have any questions, you can quickly post on in the Q&A box that is below on your link. So if you have any questions, quickly post onto the chat box and we will take it in a while. All right, let's move on and let's dive deeper into today's topic and hear from both our speakers. A quick discussion, if I can request Architect Ravi to quickly start the discussion, if anything he wishes to share about this topic or anything otherwise.
No, and I think it was heartening to see what's happening in the other corner of Asia. And our ideologies, our thoughts are all completely aligned towards saving the planet. And it's great to see that we have a huge responsibility on our shoulders because architecture outlives our lives. Therefore, we need to, and Azril, I mean, we at Edifice, we don't really care about all these certifications. I think it should come from your heart. And
Yes.
and there are many of our clients who just don't bother to go in for a lead or a GRE as a local IGBC certification. They just say that see that my life cycle costs are kept as low as possible. So it's no longer capital costs, it's all about life cycle costs and costs not just monetarily, but also on the environment. And therefore, I think whatever you talked about, buildings per se are after fossil fuels, we are the biggest culprits, we are the villains. We need to be donning a new hat and become heroes.
Beautiful project, Ravi. I so exciting to see, how natural light and the visual connections being, maximized, optimized in your design. I think very beautiful.
Thank you, Azra. And I enjoyed your work too. I think that's what I meant, that we've hardly met.
Yeah.
You are in different part of the world, I am in different, but and see where our foundations, our upbringing are very similar. I think when we grew up, our parents used to tell us to switch off the light, switch off, forget air conditioning. There was no such thing as air conditioning. It was all about
Yep.
opening the window, enjoying the breeze, and switching on the fans. And
Right.
then when
Yeah.
you don't switch on the fan, then you come out of the room, you will get a hit from your father. Switch on.
Yes, exactly.
So we grew up frugally, right? We knew how to work with frugal means. Less is more.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's move on. And before we move on to the audience questions, we have a very exciting segment, and that is about a poll. So what we will do right now is we will be conducting live polls to gather your thoughts on key topics related to today's discussion. So I would request our audience members to quickly vote as the question and the options come on the screen. So the first poll question is, which aspect of architecture do you think has the most impact on sustainability? And the options are materials used, energy efficiency, design approach, and urban planning. So quickly, if I can request our audience members to vote, and let's see which is the option that gets the majority votes.
I see that I can't vote. It said host and panelists can't vote.
That's why I specifically mentioned about the audience. All right, as the audience members are voting for this question, which is which aspect of architecture do you think has the most impact on sustainability? So would request all our audience members to quickly vote. We have about 5 more seconds as we reveal the answer. So quickly request all our audience members to quickly vote on the options. And here we have. So I'll repeat the question again. It says, which aspect of architecture do you think has the most impact on sustainability? And the majority of the voting has been done on option 1, that is materials used. So
No. It was option 3.
I was about to ask. So according to you, do you think it's option 3?
Yes, of course. I think
Yes.
so happy to see that the majority have voted for option 3. I think materiality is secondary or maybe tertiary. Design operates has to be number 1. What do you think, Azril?
What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that's exactly because design approach is something that covers the rest of the, the rest of the elements in the polls.
All right. All right, let's move on to the next poll question, and that is, would you like to see more sessions focused on sustainable and innovative design practices? And the options are, option number 1 is yes, absolutely. Option number 2 is occasionally. Option number 3 is neutral. And option number 4 is not really. So if I can request our audience members to quickly vote on these options, any of the options that you think fits in the question, so that we can have a majority answer in about 5 to 7 seconds. What do you think the options will come? What are the major votes that you think the segment which is going to get the highest votes?
I think they're all going to be saying 1, but I have something
Yeah.
to add out here. I think if you paid attention to Azril's presentation, I think one of the buildings that he showcased first was, Azril, correct me if I'm wrong, was built at least 15, 20 years back, was it?
Yes, it was completed in almost 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
because of the challenges in constructing the building, the construction took longer than to what we anticipated.
I
So
think
yeah.
what I wanted to convey was what probably Azril belongs to the same era that I belong to in terms of what was taught in architecture to us, Pooja. There was
Yes,
no word called sustainability. There was no word called green. We were
exactly.
taught architecture did not need adjectives. It had to have light, ventilation, no heat, proper orientation, and all this terms sustainable, green. They were never adjectives added to architecture then.
In fact, one of the buildings that we designed before all these tools came about, before LEED was popular, because before all this other brand was adopted, we already, have all those approaches. It is just about just to organize your thoughts, but it came naturally. How whenever we design buildings, actually.
But what has happened, I think, is I'm glad that these measures have come in and introduced some sense to architecture, because I think as you grow economically and you aspire to do more and more, you tend to then start wasting.
Yes.
And there needs to be checks and balances, and I'm glad that this has come at the right time. Otherwise, you will have um, glass boxes everywhere. You will have
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
heat
Because
island, as Azril was
uh,
mentioning.
because at one point, I can see the industry has moved towards the just aesthetics, just decorative, without have true meanings of the approaches. So I think it is partly because of the economic pressure as well, and then so people start to realize that you need to, whenever you adopt the good sustainable design practice, actually you save commercially safe. You know, you save a lot of money in running the buildings and all that. And even the whole industry start to follow the materials, the the technology of producing building materials has improved. I think all those, I mean, the whole industry has evolved into more responsible, I would say.
Yeah, so it's learning from our past mistakes.
Absolutely, yes. All right, now let's move on to the Q&A section. I'm sure all our audience members are quite excited to ask the questions through me and get their answers. So, of course, let's begin with the first question. And the first question is for architect Azril. It says, what role does technology play in advancing sustainable practices in your works?
I think technology is playing really large role in sustainable design, mainly because, for example, even the how you manage the technology, the operation of building, you need technology to do that. Building management system, something that we didn't really hear much in the past, but now it has become one of the important component to manage the active system in the building, manage your lighting, manage your air conditioning, and all that. And that's one of the examples. Another example is you need technology to have more efficient air conditioning, for example. You need technology to create, as I touched briefly earlier, to create more efficient building material with less embodied energy, for example. And in fact, you need technology uh, to harvest renewable resources, renewable energy for the building. I think, yeah, there's a lot of impact of technology in sustainable design.
Thank you very much. Moving on, the next question is, what do you think is the most impactful way design can contribute to tackling climate change? If I can request Architect Ravi to take this up for us.
Not by not building at all. No, seriously. So there is this
Yes.
One is, of course, adaptive reuse and repurpose structures, and there's so much of waste happening. Uh, but what could be done clearly is that if you were to look at architecture as a solution and not as an ornament, then you would probably be looking at it the right way. By that I mean, there are many instances where we have allowed landscape, and I think Azril, some of their projects to take precedence over architecture. There are many instances where you could build subground. You could go below ground in hot and dry areas, especially in Rajasthan, and where the architecture is not actually, is the hero. It's the landscape which is the hero. Which it's and therefore, as long as you can look at architecture as a solution, and I keep saying this, and not as ornamentation or as lipstick, uh, you will probably find more sensitive architecture emerging. And by building less, question the brief, question the demand, you will find astonishing results. And we are doing it with client after client after client. They come with an initial brief of 100 square feet per person or 10 square meters per person for an office space. And we've actually built for the same number of people. You'll find that in a commercial space, there is at least 15% absenteeism, and there is in typical across organizations. And you will find that there is more and more hybrid working now, thanks to Corona. And therefore, why build so much? There were many instances, and this has all not happened over time. All of this maturity has happened over time. Till about 2008, we were also relishing the fact that a client has come to us asking us to build 1 million square feet. We would go blind and build 1.5 million square feet because your fees depend on that, right? You
Yes.
build more, you get more fees.
Yes.
The minute that thought comes to your mind, you have started wasting. So I would say version 2 of Edifice happened when a good conscience crept in. And then 2009-10 onwards, I think there was a turning point in all for all of us. And therefore, we started looking at judicious building, judicial spending. And then luckily, I must confess that historically, every 7 to 8 years, there have been instances in the world which has helped course correction. So Corona being one of them, or an economic dip being one of them. So yeah, so climate change, you need to build less. Azril, over to you. Sorry, I took too much time on this.
Well, what was the question? I forgot the question just
Oh, she
now.
said that what can we do for
Oh,
climate
yeah.
change? I said don't build at all.
All right. Well, I think to a certain extent I agree with you, because if you look at the building stocks in the city around you, there are many empty buildings. And in fact, if you use your spaces more efficiently, perhaps you don't need to really build in the larger scale. And I think perhaps not building at all. There is the question, because you have to be efficient in using your space.
Thank you very much. Last question, as paucity of time. So, question is for architect Ravi. It says, my question is, what advice would you like to give to architects looking to make sustainability a core part of their design philosophy?
So I think stick to the basics. Always use common sense
Yep.
and respect the climate of the place, respect the context, study wind, study light, and you will achieve your results. I don't think you should go beyond that, because that's when you start going down the slippery route. Um, my advice to all young architects is to open the book on Indian climate written by Koenigsberger, study it, read about it, and probably Malaysia has got several, including what Azril is doing, architects who have truly done justice in terms of, I can immediately recall Ken Yang doing some superlative work where, in India we have plenty more, and we are just a speck. There are many more who are doing very good sensitive architecture. I think China has plenty of them.
Yep.
There is Wang Shu, there is Neri Hu, there is Vector Architects. There's a Vector. There is a Vector in China, and it's brilliant work. So I think we have to open our eyes, listen to the wind blowing, look at the sunlight, enjoy, and architecture will emerge.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And a quick message for young architects from architect Azril as well, please.
Right. Don't over design. Practice restraint whenever you are approaching architecture or your building design, and you have to, as far as sustainable is concerned, you have to really absorb your lifestyle into it, and then be part of it, and then really believe in it. I think, yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful. Very well said. Restraint is the word.
Yeah.
Yes, strength is the word. Yes. Thank you once again, Architect Azril and Architect Ravi, for
Thank you so much.
insightful answers, and of course for
Thank
your
you.
wonderful,
Yeah.
valuable time. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right. Nice meeting you. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. You too.
See you.
Okay, bye.
What an incredible session. Thank you so much to our guests for sharing their expertise and inspiring us to think differently about the future of architecture and design. A big thank you to our audience members for their engagement and thoughtful questions. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Don't forget to stay connected with us for updates on episode 6 of VC Live. Until then, have a great weekend and continue to push the boundaries of design. See you next time. Thank you very much. Be safe.
Welcome to the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club, where innovation meets collaboration. GVCC is a unique platform for architects and interior designers to merge their creative visions with our innovative product offerings. We aim to cultivate a network of thought leaders, driving innovation and excellence in the industry. Celebrate your achievements with our GV's awards, recognizing innovative projects across various verticals. Join our community through exhibition visits and masterclasses to stay updated on the latest trends and technologies. Enjoy exclusive access to new products, special discounts, and tours of our Mumbai and Goa plants. Join the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club today. Be part of a community that values innovation, collaboration, and sustainability.
Okay, Google, unlock the front door.
What's your voice code for front door?
7777.
Unlocking. Hang on. The front door is unlocked.
Godrej Locks.